On November 12, 2023, a very large neutrino burst was detected by multiple observatories, followed by what appeared to be a supernova of some sort, or an intermittent variable. But then hours later, the variable disappeared. The first event, the neutrino burst, was recorded by multiple detectors across the planet. Strangely, with no point of origin, a case of everything, everywhere, all at once. This was all very exciting until they discovered the two events were unrelated. And this is where it gets weird. In a way no one could have imagined at the time, the two observations were indeed tied to each other. So strange was the connection that a select few individuals, driven by previous events, would be drawn together in an extraordinary purpose spanning the globe. On the day of the event, from a military exercise in Australia to seemingly less relevant events in the past, they would come together to decide the future. From the depths of space to earthly impacts, deep history, ancient civilizations, and the mountains of Afghanistan. The November 12th space anomaly would draw a cast of unusual characters: Major Jake Shepard, callsign Hammer, Squadron Commander, Australian Special Air Service Regiment, and battle-hardened veteran Madison Bennet, a journalist and war correspondent for GPT News. Oscar McDade, billionaire in the mold of Elon Musk. And Professor Ksenia Mikhailovich Sakharov, or Kaz to friends, a brilliant Russian scientist. So, time to return to the events of 12 November. Strictly speaking, the astronomers, astrophysicists, and others studying this phenomena were not wrong. The electromagnetic signal was tracked back to the Sculptor Galaxy Cluster, with the signal aptly named the Sculptor Intermittent Variable, or SIV. This cluster is 700 million light-years away, which is why the two events could not possibly be related. At least, this is what the scientific establishment believed. It is not uncommon for neutrinos to precede electromagnetic waves, because they are often sprayed into space before the main event. But not in this case. This belief is understandable. Neutrinos with a tiny mass travel a fraction slower than light. In the race across the cosmos, visible light would pass their weightier cousins. After traveling such massive distances, the time difference between the arrival of neutrinos and light would be in the hundreds of years. Thus, the only conclusion was that the two events were unrelated. Where then does this leave us? Intelligence agencies in both Western and Eastern hemispheres suspected something, albeit not quite sure what. An unexplained electromagnetic pulse on November 12 at Vostok station in Antarctica confirmed suspicions that there was much more to the Sculptor variable signal which needed to be investigated. The Vostok pulse was big enough to briefly knock out power. This would require significant energy and was highly unlikely to be natural. Vostok wasn't the only detectable pulse with an earthly origin. A one-of-a-kind system had detected energy signatures that had pulsed simultaneously across the planet shortly before the Sculptor signal. While the signal perplexed the best minds mankind had to offer, this system had gleaned immediate insight. This was an advanced artificial intelligence called Relic. Housed within the walls of McDade Industries, it had geolocated and quickly attributed the multiple Earth-originating pulse events to a distributed set of ancient artifacts, which is where the Puckapunyal armored exercise comes in. Jake Shepard was the chief instructor for the Combined Arms Training Center and was supervising the exercise that day. The locations of these artifacts, one of which sat on the hip of Major Jake Shepard, were now a focus of interest for McDade Industries and especially Relic. However, complications for McDade and Relic were already in play. The Vostok electromagnetic anomaly had attracted significant interest from Russian and Chinese intelligence. Leading this investigation were Hong Lu and Colonel Nikolai Nebulak. both with reputations you wouldn't tell your mother about. Thousands of feet below Vostok Station was Vostok Lake. Was this the source of the anomaly? Relic already knew and had developed a working hypothesis on what had and was still transpiring. A theory that reflected humanity's own lost history with the origin of the Sculptor signal. Join us in part 2 of this series as we explore the origin of the artifacts and the stonecutters.